And you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, the Vanilla Gorilla and the Swap That Got Away. What's poppin', Jesse and Danny?
Yo, what's going on?
How y'all feeling today?
Swap up.
There we are.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't know this story?
No.
So me and Danny normally swap all the big events. Guess which one we didn't swapping?
Oh, no. WPT?
Yeah.
Lucky for him. Also, how big of a swap fish are you?
We'll do like friendly one ball
We do one
invitations.
balls.
Yeah,
But you're not the only one to say that.
Of
He's
course.
real friendly.
Yeah. That whew, man, I got to tell you, that's nice for you. I don't think you're going to get that swap anymore, buddy.
I'll get it.
Just looking at these,
I'll get it. I'll
looking
see
at
him
these
around.
Hendon mobs, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of gotta swap up. Ask Landon, he'll tell him teach him the resume how to swap.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Pretty
Yeah.
good. Resume great.
I've done well. Well, I mean, after actually winning money, it feels bad because now I had to pay out some money on swaps.
Well, at some point you have to fucking pay, otherwise you're not gonna get any swaps.
I know, I paid, and I got showered by people that have paid me.
Smart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
They were
what you do once you get even.
I was
you
like,
know?
we're pretty close in chips. Like, nah, we're not close enough. Like, okay. That's fine.
All right, we got a fun one today. Obviously, we're in the after dark time slot. We have two of the current games. I don't want to say legends. It's a little too young, too early for that. But man, looking at you guys as Hendon mobs, you guys are fucking hot.
Legends to be.
Hot. You guys both surpassed my entire 20-year career in like
right.
18 months.
Yeah.
Sepiol did it in one score. I
There he
mean,
is.
10.
Gorilla.
I got to tell you,
8 figures.
I knew you guys were crushing, but I had no idea it was over such a short period of time and for so much. Both of your first Hendon mob scores go back to like 2018 and 2017, respectively. So, what, Jesse, for you, it's been basically 6 years, Danny 7 at most?
Yeah, I mean the first I think 2020 is when I actually started playing tournaments consistently. I played maybe 10, 20 tournaments in the first 2 years or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I should be specific. Your first score in 2018 was a $20 buy-in for a $200 win.
Well, the funny part is that wasn't me unless I was drugged up. No, because that score, I've never been to Niagara Casino to play poker, and I was
beautiful place.
Yeah, and that score has always been there, and I don't know. I could have got really fucked up one weekend and maybe somehow ended up there and just completely blanked it out. But
I mean,
that's the only way. I don't remember that one.
My very first tournament win was also at Seneca Niagara. However, I actually was there.
In spirit and body?
In spirit and in body. Yeah, just browsing through, it looks like you were a big 210 grinder in Verona, wherever that is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, is that Turning Stone?
That's Turning
Oh,
Stone.
okay. Yeah. Why'd they call it Verona? Okay, fair. And then your first real score, I guess, would have been you won an event, WSOP circuit 2020. So yeah, like you were saying, 2020 really. So now we're talking like throwing COVID in the mix.
That's a good hand for Jesse.
You have like 2 years
That is
total.
a good hand.
Oh, yeah, I do get it.
2 years total live experience.
No,
basically?
yeah, after COVID, I remember I started right before COVID, and then the world shut down, so it kind of obviously no one got to play. But after COVID, I put in really heavy volume.
You just went on a rip.
Yeah.
Just like the biggest rip.
Yep.
How? I need to know. What's the secret sauce, man?
We can't discuss every little detail.
No,
of it.
well, hey, you
But-
know.
Not have to give it all away.
I was always, I think I just needed to be comfortable and have a little bit of money to play. And I think that's the most important thing, is being comfortable at whatever stakes you're playing and everything. And for me, I just never really had the bankroll to go after tournaments, really. Like, if I was taking $600 at one time was like, all right, if I lose this, I'm done. So it's
Right.
like once I had the money, and then during COVID, I watched. That's like really when I had the tournament bug right before, and I started just watching endless videos of Adamo, all the Poker Go stuff. Pretty much, I would just study it and just really focus on who I thought was really good then and winning a lot, and try to take like little pieces of all their games and just incorporate it. And then, I mean, I think I obviously naturally had a pretty good talent for tournaments and just being able to play against all different types of people, and just got, I don't know exactly what clicked, but something clicked. And
Obviously something clicked. That's very clear. You don't just ship 10 million in this short period of time if something isn't working.
yeah,
You kind of touched on a couple things, and I'll ask both of you this because I think, especially now, you guys are both on the younger side of things. You've kind of specifically started putting a lot of volume kind of at the tail end of the solver push and the game theory influence on the game and things of that nature. Whereas like for someone like myself or Brian and Conrad, we were kind of like when it was just a lot of street poker, a lot of mano-a-mano trying to outwit people at the table. This is kind of a two-part question, but first and foremost, one, where do you guys think you each develop your foundational knowledge of the game? Like, is it influenced by game theory in general, or is it more so just observational study? And then secondarily, how much is being well rolled playing a part in just being able to pull the right triggers and basically take these really thin spots that maybe you wouldn't be able to go gorilla on if that weren't the case?
first.
Don't matter.
So I think for me, like the base game, like I said, my early experience was watching the top level players play. So I think naturally watching that, I kind of naturally had like a good range for like opening hands, and just from watching the
Right.
best in the world of play. Like you said, that when you started, it was all more street. People just kind of did it. When I started watching, everybody kind of played. Obviously they were all studying at that point. So I think naturally my game was kind of revolved around GTO and stuff, but then I never kind of, took that part. I just naturally had the street side.
You haven't ran The Sims, but you're privy to the boundaries of like what the ranges are and what they should do.
Of course, yeah. I mean, just naturally, if you're gonna watch or play every day, you're gonna see what's opening too wide and what's opening too tight, and so it just that was kind of the easier part of the game for me, I guess. It's more like I've always had like a kind of photographic memory when it comes to like seeing something or doing something. I learn from it pretty quick, so next time I know, like, hey, you're a little off there, you shouldn't be doing
Right.
that. So,
And I guess piggybacking off of that, would you say that now that you have come into a fair amount of money and you're pretty much well rolled for everything you play,
Yeah.
that you're able to open your game up more than you were previously?
of course, yeah. When my first, like, I just remember like my first few trips, like when I was taking shots and everything, and just there was spots where like in my gut I was like, wow, I just know that I could get this guy off the hand, but I'm like, well, if I don't, then I'm broke. So I got to fold.
Yeah,
So. And then like obviously once it was it's like a rolling ball, once you get a little money and everything, then yeah, you can just be more comfortable and go for more chips. So you're getting chips more, and
You just got more fight in you.
exactly. You got more power, more ammo.
Not being stone broke when you lose is probably a good feeling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Been in that spot,
Start
pulled the
there.
trigger anyway.
Yeah.
Have gone home broke.
So did I. Yeah, for sure. That was my early, career was all cash games, and I remember going to Turning Stone Casino at least 40, 50 times and coming home completely dead broke, and then like starting a new job. So like I always had that feeling and knew what it was like. So feeling that pain obviously makes you better too. Like just knowing that it's not the end of the world. Like
Last question before I bring Danny into this. Are you pretty close with Deeb, being from near the same area?
my early experience was a lot with Deeb, but he was already like obviously playing huge games, and I was kind of playing mid stakes at that point. So, Deeb's me and him get along great now, but growing up, he's like kind of a tougher character to get along with.
Yeah,
He talks a lot of shit.
sounds
So it's
about
like, and me, I was young and never liked to take anyone's shit. So it's like, we butted heads at first, but now, I mean, I think we both have a mutual respect for each other.
That's reasonable. All right, let's hear from Boy Wonder here. What's Boy Wonder? What's your backstory, man? Because my first experience with you was just watching you rifle it off with King 10 versus Chewy, and I said, you know what? I like the cut of this kid's jib.
Yep.
I don't know what fuck's going on here, but he is playing for $5 million, and he's currently all in with King High.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Love to see it.
Yeah, I guess my fundamentals are more so like trial and error. I started playing online when I was like 13-ish,
How old are you now?
30.
What?
I had a full
Fucking
schedule.
Sean Winter over here.
Had a full schedule of free rolls that I could play. Like there was a website that had a full schedule of all the free rolls on the site. So
The
You
Pudgy
don't want to
Penguins.
self-report?
no, and then just like put in a lot of volume and trial and error and met up some right people along the way to get some coaching and mentoring.
When did you transition from free rolls to roll money?
A couple years.
Like 15.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been playing basically 15 years, but it's low key been.
Yeah, but it wasn't like I deposited $20 and ran it up to $2 million or like.
What was it like?
It seems like your
A lot
life.
of ups and downs. yeah.
Sure, yeah.
But I was like, I was just learning, didn't know what I was doing, and once I was like 16, 17, I made some decent money for being in high school playing
Yeah.
tournaments.
Pretty
From the time
gangster.
I was like 18 to 23, it was like real rocky.
No college, just kind of staying
Kinda
with the
little
grind.
college and messing around and
You're from the East Coast, right?
Midwest,
Oh, okay, where? At?
Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Philadelphia.
I thought Philly. Okay, so these earlier years, like 18 to 23, you're just like grinding low stakes online.
Just kind of messing around, getting in trouble, and
When
Yeah.
did it change? When did you start like putting
When
in
you get
full
out of
volume?
trouble.
Yeah,
when I
when,
was like 24, 23, 24, I
Okay.
started like started to make some money and like keep my head on straight.
still just MTTs.
Both. A lot
Okay.
of online cash back in the, a lot of ignition cash back then. And
Okay.
Your first live bird, you got second, or
Yeah, it was like a 360 circuit-ish event with like 3,000 runners.
dope.
How long do you think that money lasted, Conrad?
14 minutes.
I'm starting to see why you guys. I'm starting to see how you two came to to become friendly here. This is making a hell of a lot more sense. All right, so
punt.
your your first like live score was roughly 2017. So you're only talking like 7 years in the live realm. So that means you had more than half of your career online. Did you get to a point where you're putting up like pretty reasonable results, you felt pretty confident in your game, and you had a decent role, or was this just kind of the trial and error period until finally something broke?
Kind of like a trial and error period until I would say like when I was 24-ish, I started making some consistent money, and then when COVID hit, that was a good time as well.
Back online? Yeah. And then you were mostly on the majors at that point, I would assume. Yeah. Okay. So that makes some sense, at least how you got money. How I won't ask if you kept money or anything along those lines. What was the turning point for you live? Because again, my first experience with you was you winning $5 million.
Yeah.
So you were a complete unknown to me. It's just like, this kid's just the richest person I've ever met right now.
I guess around the time I was like 24-ish, having a little success online, and then I got staked for live tournaments by Taylor Black, and he coached me and like really gave me the fundamentals that I needed and like the instincts that I have now.
Shout out Taylor Black.
Yeah,
Very
shout
good
out to
player.
Taylor.
Yeah, shout out Taylor.
And then once COVID hit, he kind of dropped everyone and then went on a heater then.
And for you, when it comes to like study or influence and things like that, it again is like more observational, more trial and error. It's not really, you're not a sim guy.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Triton stuff, a lot of the GG Masters, Final Tables, Poker Go stuff, but Me personally, yeah, I'm definitely not running any sims.
Honestly, like, I mean, it's music to my ears.
But I
because
do have some, like, sim friends where I'll ask them some, Landon over here.
I was gonna say Landon.
Yeah. Hey, look, I built a company off of this. Truthfully, I'm not even exaggerating. In 2016, when we started this whole thing, the idea wasn't necessarily to bridge the gap between the common person and running sims. It was more so that I was strictly a live guy, and I recognized how big the gap was between what people were studying to beat online and what they were studying to beat live. So it was like, well, I think experiential learning is just worth a lot. And the more it developed, and we brought Landon along and things like that, the more I began to understand that the vast majority of the people that play this game are going to be more heavily influenced by trends than they are by the actual outputs, right? Like, even the winners, there's going to be a huge chunk of them that truly never run anything themselves. And they shouldn't have to. No other space would you expect the data analyst to also be the practitioner who's going out and executing on the strategies, right? Like, usually the data analyst conveys something to the market strategist who goes out and creates things and pulls people in. So
You're saying Aaron Judge isn't like running data analysis for the Yankees?
bro, that guy probably has never even looked at a spray chart. He just sits back and says, tell me where ball at. I hit.
I smash it.
I smash ball.
That's exactly how we play poker.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Show me my opponent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all in.
I think
Oh, you bet half pot. I'm all in.
don't do that to me right now. Okay? Don't do that to me right now. I'm fucking tilted. We can't do this right now.
What's wrong, Burke?
We're not going to talk about it. I lost a big bluff today.
It happens.
But what I'm getting at is, like, I think you guys are exemplifying, and you're making it. I don't want to put too much pressure on you guys or even give you too much flowers for something, but you're kind of making it cool again to not be the nerd. It's like I say that lovingly. Like, I think for a long time,
No disrespect to Landon.
no, but I think for a long time this space started to trend in a way where you were either part of the theory cult or you were on the outs.
Right.
And if you're on the outs, then you had to go the whole other direction, like Deeb, where you shout from the rooftops that you've never studied a day in your life, or like Becker saying, like, I don't even own a computer. It's like, bro, we're all doing the same shit. Like, I don't run a lot of sims either, but I know a fair amount about game theory, and it's like we all have influences and exposure in different sort of ways. And I think, like, you guys kind of reignite the common dream in the young kid who's coming up and wants to grind, right? It's like, well, I don't want to be Landon, no offense. I don't want to spend 4 years just slaving over sims and trying to figure out why this suit matters and that suit doesn't. Like, I want to get out there and I want to smash some fucking heads. And I think that
Suit theory's
specifically,
cool, man. Love suit theory.
I think specifically, like,
Good combos, cuz.
what you guys have done over the course of really like the last 24 months is from an MTT standpoint, I don't want to say unprecedented, but it's the stuff dreams are made of for anybody who's in the grind. And I don't think it's worth overlooking that, like, you guys didn't just show up. Like, even though I'm saying, like, my first exposure to you is like, you're just a young kid who ripped off 5 million and it's just like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, nah, man, he's been grinding for 17 years.
Yeah.
Like, started with free rolls, was underage, he's cheating the system, just total delinquent. And then here we are almost 2 decades later.
He's
and
weaving.
finds himself at the top, right? So I do think that there's something to it. What do you guys think about the overall tone of the community whenever it comes to studied versus unstudied, theory versus non-theoretical, freestyling versus quote unquote playing by the rules?
Like you were saying, like my first couple of years, especially when I started getting to the high stakes scene, I kind of felt like a black sheep in a way because I didn't study, and all the theory guys were like, this kid's just a whale, he's a fish. When I was sitting there like, I want to play with these guys every day, like like I thought.
You're like Blesnick.
You're like Blesnick, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I thought I wanted to follow these guys at PLO.
They got ace jack off.
He's out of the tournament. He gets ace jack. He's out of the
They're calling
tournament.
me the whale, and they're going all in with pocket threes.
So good.
And so, like, it does feel kind of good in a way, like that being able to say that, you know, that we're doing it a different way.
Number
And-
one GPI player in the world, buddy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
That's got to
great.
feel good.
It does, yeah.
There's
I
got to be
mean,
some validation to that, right?
It's, you know, I'm grateful and just like, it's crazy, you know. It's just, I never thought that I would get there that quick, kind of. You know, I thought, you know, I always thought I could do it and stuff and believed in it, but just like the path has kind of been, it feels like a dream all the time, obviously. It's like, I get emotional thinking about it because it's kind of, it came out of nowhere.
Do you worry that it's not replicable? That like this is the highest of highs, and from here it's all because this is my big self-sabotage. I start winning too much,
Yeah.
and I'm Chicken Little, man. The
Yeah,
sky's falling.
You're like,
I'm
it's
fucked.
got to turn sometime.
Dig a hole in the backyard and bury as much money as I can because it's
Yeah.
all gonna come crashing down.
I mean, I guess luckily I'm just kind of positive all the time. I feel like when it comes to poker, I just think that I don't know. When I sit down, I just feel like I'm gonna win. So
Yeah.
no, mentally, I guess I don't feel that way. But obviously, you know, it's been such a crazy ride, and the big field tournaments, I feel like that's gonna be hard to replicate. Like the one that me and Landon were just in.
Yeah.
The one before that, I chopped it and then went down, you know, one bullet again and got third. So that's just, it feels astronomical to like beat thousands of people twice without busting. So, I mean, that, I feel like in the high roller events, the smaller fields, I can keep it replicated. Like, because I've honestly, maybe it's just in my head, I've always felt like I always ran kind of bad in my higher buy-ins until my 50K PLO, and then this year I've ran good in them. But like, I just remember my first like 25K, I got aces all in against aces lost it, and then like my first like 6 or 7 of them just couldn't get it going, and I was like,
Well, that's kind of reflective of the edge, though, right? Like the edges are so much closer in the higher buy-ins, whereas they're massively, like they're kind of astronomical in these open field events.
yeah.
So it's like maybe there is something to the fact that like you couldn't get it going, not just because luck ran against you, but because luck is going to be a bigger factor.
Of course, yeah, and they're definitely, when you play them, they're more turbo events. I feel like the higher buy-in, so the variance is definitely feels way more real in those higher buy-ins, and that's why I like to have a backer for those. And then like the, you know, the big field 5Ks and 10K main events, like in my head, I feel like I could make day 5 every time I play the main event, just because I have like a
Nice place to be.
a formula for it. I feel like where I can navigate the first 4 days without busting. But like, it's just yeah, like you said, like with the higher buy-ins, it's the variance is ramped up for sure. And these big field lower ones where you have hour levels against people that can just put in 300 big blinds drawing dead consistently and stuff. So it's like, yeah, you definitely feel like you can replicate that more.
It sounds like you dealt with swings a little bit more maybe throughout the years, Sepiol. What do you feel like? Do you feel a potential come down after shipping 5 million and then winning a bracelet this summer? Like, do you feel the anticipation of a fall off? And if
and then
so,
winning
like,
the 25K.
yeah, that too. Like, do you feel a certain anticipation, and like, how do you deal with that sort of emotion?
No, honestly, I don't feel anything like that. I just enjoy playing for the most part, enjoy traveling for the most part for poker, like go to Florida in a week, play some good tournaments there, and like Jesse said, living the dream and real grateful, and yeah,
just on the fucking grind.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like it was funny because it's been like 2 or 3 years ago, we both moved out to Vegas around the same time, and I would pick him where he lived was like 5 minutes from my house, and I would pick him up for like tournaments on the way or whatever, vice versa, and we'd smoke on the ride down. And you know, we were stressing back then because we were just starting and going through with the ups and downs. You know, I would have hits, but I would blow the money quicker than anyone too, and I would, you know, we'd always just tell each other, like, is that, you know, just grind, like, don't stress out over the small moments. When you're in that big moment is when you really have to perform. You know, there's going to be key moments where, like, all the thousands of decisions you made are going to matter less than 3 decisions in the next hour.
Right.
So and like when Danny was in his biggest moment in the WPT, he played flawless, and like, it was just like, I envisioned those car rides of me saying, like, just when you're in that big moment, play play perfect, like really lock in.
Jesse definitely manifested it.
Yeah, I always told him. I would tell him. I said, bro, we're gonna be the best in this game. We're gonna dominate. Just don't worry. Keep going. People are gonna laugh at some of the hands that they're gonna see and think whatever, but just stick to the program and eventually it'll pay off.
Well, since you brought it up, why don't you give me a little insight to what the hell was going on in this King 10 hand? Because I think it's a fascinating hand. Like, even from a theory perspective, I think there's a lot going on there. And I do think it's kind of reflective of whether you're well studied or not, that you do have a principled understanding of the game. I'm curious as to like what led you down that path in such a high pressure situation where obviously, like, when this doesn't work, it's easy to second guess and say, well, that was unnecessary. Yeah.
I think one of my strengths is being able to like put the money aside and just play my cards. And if I think the best decision is the 3-bet triple it off, then yeah.
So be it.
Yeah, and then so be it. Yeah.
So for those who don't know the hand we're talking about, it was a 3-bet pot, 6 remaining. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds right.
6 remaining at the final table of the WPT championship last year, 2 years ago.
Last year.
Okay, last year. Yeah. Here's the hand. 4-3-3 rainbow board. It's pretty standard up until this point. Chewy checks, Sepiol C bets, Chewy calls. Turn ends up bringing backdoor diamonds, I believe. And you decide that you have a candidate that's kind of worth going for here. From a range standpoint, talk us through a little bit of like what the value side of your range looks like here. And then from the other side, what were you expecting Chewy to kind of like call fold? Like, what were your targets here with the King 10 high? You don't have to get that deep, but like, just generally speaking.
Yeah.
What kept you from shitting yourself? Let me rephrase.
I just kind of thought, I was pretty confident he was going to fold the river.
Yeah.
In general, like I was probably playing in Chewy's eyes, probably a little too tight maybe. So,
okay.
I just knew I'd get a lot of credit.
And you had him slightly covered here. Is that correct? No, you were covered. That's right.
He was like stone last. He was like
yeah.
6 of 6.
Okay, yeah. So let me ask the question from that standpoint then. Given that you were 6 of 6 and that there wasn't a ton of ICM pressure on you, did that make this spot easier to pull off?
I didn't really even think about that in the moment that I'm 6 of 6, less ICM pressure. Like I said, I kind of just thought it was a good spot. And
you guys make me feel comfortable playing tournaments again.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I just sit around Landon all day long. And it's like, I'm way too bad to play tournaments. I don't know anything about ICM. Like, I'm too gangster. I'm just out here fucking rifling it off with these hands.
You would like some of our hand history.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I need to get I need out of this group chat. I need in this group chat.
Yeah, exactly.
The other problem is I think everything would just be like, yeah, it's good.
I think when I was watching the hand of Danny doing it, and I just remember, and I don't think in the moment he was really thinking about what he's targeting. I think it was more just being in the presence and feel that he felt like
Chewy was kind of in the middle to bottom.
That he wasn't he wasn't nutted. Like he, I think that from that
makes a lot more
being
sense.
In that spot, I'm not even, a lot of times I'm thinking of their range, but that's not what's deciding my decision in that moment. It's more just feeling like, okay, I'm supposed to have this here, and it doesn't feel like he has that. So let's go.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a tough spot too when you're playing as cutoff, just because your range is so wide in the first place because you're playing a lot of hands, and then B, when you get 3-bet, you're mostly going to play like a 4-bet non-all-in or a jam with really good hands. So you're kind of stuck in this middle of the range by calling in the first place. Yeah. Right, so like Chewy's probably gonna have like 6s, 7s a lot of the time, which is not a very easy decision to play call versus a triple with a range that's gonna have a lot of overpairs that are always gonna 3-bet.
Let me ask you this: when the 3 hit the river, completing trips, was there any part of you that kind of wanted to abandon the bluff?
No, not
I think that made him want to do it more.
Yeah, see, it's funny. I've grown into
the zero. Fuck the zero theorem.
Yeah, that's the thing is I've grown into understanding that people will start to fold again Like we've come full circle.
Yeah.
People will actually fold pocket sixes on a board like this now, even though it's a full house.
Yeah.
But man, back in my day, you did not try to bluff somebody off a fucking full house.
I'm putting you on ace king every time.
100%.
He's got ace king.
100%, bro. And it's like when that 3 hit the river, you just go, God damn it. Any other card in the deck, I would have just rifled it, but not this one.
Nah, I was just hoping for no diamond.
Yeah, that obviously makes a lot of sense.
You think you shut it down on a diamond? Like a 7 of diamonds, you just kind of over it?
Kind of
Like
have to.
he just has enough like
Yeah.
flush draws
No.
as a whole. I'm ravaging it off
Gets
now.
it all.
No,
Danny
I-
gets
no
6.
matter what.
No podcast, no money, no money. It's all over.
Next tournament.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was your biggest score. Was that like the biggest moment for you poker wise?
Oh yeah.
Like, was there ever a feeling that replicated that?
No, I mean it was just super surreal feeling. Like obviously life changing. Part of it's still sinking in. Like 7-8 months later.
Yeah. These events seem so unwinnable to me. I play them all.
I agree. Like I'm more of a realist than Jesse is.
Yeah.
Like like play tournaments. But
I'm
we're gonna
definitely in
lose
a
80%
fiction
of the
land.
time.
Right.
So like I always had confidence in myself, thinking I'd have a big moment like this. But like I'm also a realist, and there's like 4,000 people in the tournament.
Right, you don't expect to win the main event next year. But maybe.
But Jesse does.
Right. And almost
Jesse has
did.
a formula.
Almost did, by the way.
Yeah.
I
just bust day one of the main every time.
I'm with you, man. Sometimes I bag crumbs and make day 2. You also played a fucking wild hand on the bubble this year, the main.
Yeah.
Walk us through that one a little bit. I believe you had ace 5 off. Is that right?
Yeah. That was the very first hand of day 4, right? We made
Yeah.
the money day 4.
Yeah.
So they were like, it wasn't the direct bubble, but it was, with that
Couple
big of a field with my stack, you're in the money pretty much.
Yeah.
If you want to be.
It was,
If you wanna be.
it was hours to cash, but it was like 5 hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
if you want to get money, you can.
it was the very first hand off the deck, and I already had, like, for my first, I don't know, when I played the main event, my first few days, I played just overly solid, where, like, straight small ball, where I'm just not getting in any, like, huge inflated pots until later streets, until turn river,
Yeah.
because it's tournament, obviously it's a free
You
throw.
and everybody else, man.
Yeah,
You
we're
and
trying.
everybody
We're
else.
trying. And
You're trying not to play too big of pots unless you
Right.
got it.
no, but once I'm at day 4, day 5, my history of playing the main event is I felt like I wasn't aggressive enough. When I got to day 4 and day 5, I was kind of in the
Still
mode.
trying to navigate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I told myself this year, like, all right, day 4.
Reckless abandon.
I kind of drove in that morning, like, we're playing to get it today. And, of course, I look at ace 5 off first hand, so cutoff opened, and I played with him in 25Ks before, and I know he's not scared money,
Yeah.
which probably makes it where you shouldn't do it as much. But
Leveling war, here we go.
exactly, and already from the start, we played literally like a week before in a 25K, and we were battling hard. So when he opened, obviously I sized up the 3-bet because in my mind I had a shit hand, so I'm just trying to take it down there, obviously.
Sure.
I'm not trying to get value. And he flops 6, 9, 10. When he flatted pre, I'm putting him on a lot of ace jack, some pocket pairs, obviously, but the reason I c-bet flop, and then when he raised flop, it kind of takes away all his sets, all his really big hands, and I'm not putting him on, like, I wasn't really putting him on queens plus or anything, so maybe jacks was one hand that he may flat in that spot because we were deep enough where he's not going to want to go broke with jacks probably. That was the only hand I was really worried about, so on that flop, when I'm not putting him on any of those strong hands, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell the story that I have aces, kings, I'm going to try to shut down his equity. We put in the re-raise, and now I could tell he wanted to be done with the hand after I re-raised it. His initial thought was, okay, I'm done. And then I think he just felt my bullshit. He's a very good player too, Bart. He's been around forever. And he felt that I had bullshit too. We actually talked about the hand after. I smoked a joint with him, and we talked about the whole...
They made peace.
We did, yeah. And
Peace pipe.
Yeah.
so obviously, once he flatted, now I think 80-90% of the time there, I'm just going to shut down against most people. But in that spot, I just knew that he was floating me light and just really felt it. And on the turn, I took my time, and I remember like I kind of do the same motions all the time. Either if, I'm balanced with my motions and stuff, but I remember while I'm doing the motion, I'm like, all right, I probably really should think about this right now. And then like I thought deep, and I was like, you know what? This is the part where having enough money and not being scared of dying, obviously.
It's like you don't have to cash the main.
No, I don't have to cash it. 20K is not going to do anything.
You cash if you want to.
Exactly. So that was kind of like my final decision where I'm like, all right, that, and he's floating you light here. You feel it, so just go with your feel. That's you. And then so on the turn.
What was the turn?
6. It paired the board too. So
okay.
obviously
That's a nice card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's a card that I'm gonna jam with my.
How deep were you though?
Well, on the turn, so there's like 1.3 million in the pot, and I had like 340K left. So.
Yeah. We're living on the edge, baby.
Exactly. That's what made the hand crazy, is because like it wasn't much more for him to call, and he had me slightly covered by a little bit, and
I'm guessing he just folded like a better ace high.
No, he whatever. He took his time and folded, but once he took his time, I knew he was folding, because any of his hands, especially him and me, the way we had history, he was gonna snap with everything. Yeah. So I knew he was just posturing at that point. So once I didn't get snapped, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna win. And when we talked, I thought he had king queen or something like that, and he told me he had king queen.
Oh, okay.
Is he value jam?
Yeah.
So I had the best hand. I found out I did have the best hand, but and in that spot, I kind of felt like I had the best hand. Really, I was just like, but that I wasn't obviously going for value.
You guys were both fucking around.
We were fucking around. It was high level fuckery.
Okay. Well, that's nice. It seems as though
poker's alive still, man.
Well, I love everything about this. This is how I played for. I mean, this is still to a degree how I played, but
you just played like that today.
Berkey, what happened today? The people need to know.
Yeah, tell them that.
I thought I had a read on a betting tell. I don't want to get into the whole details of it, but basically, I got 3-bet and I called with Jack 10, Jack of Hearts, and it came Queen 6, 3, 2 hearts, faced a smallish bet, call, turn, offsuit 8, and he bets like half pot. And I was just like, this isn't a thing. Fuck this guy. I'm going to raise. So I raised. He called. And there's like 35K in the pot, and we're like 80K effective. And my plan was to pot most rivers. I'm like, I'm going to check back a Jack or a 10 because I'm probably just going to suck out on whatever bullshit
like
he's
pocket
bet calling.
10s or 9s.
Or just like, ace 6 of hearts or whatever. Yeah, whatever. I was just like, I make a pair. It's probably good a lot of the time. And if I brick, I'm just going to bet like pot, because that's what my range is going to want to do on most rivers. Like I'm repping 2 pair plus on the turn, and then I have a lot of draws. So basically on any river card, except for this one very particular one, I'm mostly going to bet pot. Well, the river comes the queen of diamonds, and I'm just like, well, that's the one that I'm all in on, which is very unfortunate because I don't want to be all in for 3x pot, but I have to be. And it's okay because I'm pretty sure he was merging when he bet this weirdish weak size on the turn. And I was maybe kind of right. Maybe he thought of his hand as being weakish when he bet it on the turn. But unfortunately for me, he rivered trips. And he tortured me with 8 minutes of a tank, telling me how greedy I was for shoving 3x pot. And then eventually called me with ace queen, which was just enough to make me go home 120K loser. So yeah, poker's alive and well, kids.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think we're so lucky that there's no bridges in Vegas.
You have no clue, man.
I can think of a couple on the strip.
Yeah.
They're not high enough. They're not easy enough to access. There's way too, and honestly, like the Hoover Dam is way too far away. I'd talk myself out of it by the time I got there. This is the right city to have casinos, I'm telling you.
True.
I have to rent a hotel room on the 50th floor or some shit. Parking garage, maybe. One of these days.
If it was Pittsburgh, you'd have been done a long time ago.
Gone. Either that or learned how to swim.
You'd have been in the Gainey?
I would have been in the Gainey.
In the Gainey.
Huh?
You know how to swim.
Not well enough to jump into a river from a bridge 20 feet off the ground.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, you could.
I don't know, man.
You'd
Allegheny got a current
fine.
to it,
Yeah.
You'd be fine.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
I also don't know how deep it is, and I would be going head first.
All right. Well, if you just go head first, no hand, like then
Full
you're
send.
dead. Then
Full send,
it's over.
baby. Yeah, full send. Let's
Sailor
put it
dive.
in.
You know, guys, I battled against Jesse Lonis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What were you playing?
WPT Cruise.
Mm.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
He's mucho aggro.
He's moving.
Mucho aggro.
I just remember I was just like, man, this guy's like in every pot. Hold on a second.
By the way, that's Spanish for very.
And I knew his face looked familiar, so I threw it in the chat, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's Jesse Lonis."
Yeah. That was like when Nikki was at Red Rock, and she's like, "There's this whale to my right. He's in every single pot." And she sends us a picture, and it's Bing Wang.
So fucking good.
I'm like, I think he's fucking around. All right, getting back to your guys' timeline a little bit. We know Danny's highlight here is the WPT win. You don't have like that outlandish score. I mean, your biggest win is 2 million, which is a lot, obviously. Maybe that's the bullet point, but you have 10 million in earnings, so it's not like it's that big of a standout by comparison. Is it a single score that stands out to you? Is it the GPI Player of the Year chase that you're on right now that stands out? Like, what's the thing that motivates you the most? Is it the baby?
The kids.
The kids.
I mean,
You can't roll for spots because
there's
he's
a
got children.
lot of mouths to feed.
No mixing.
I got a third kid on the way, so
Or if you want to adopt Landon and really go broke,
yeah,
find out real fast what a food bill looks like.
yeah, but yeah.
I've been cutting a chicken
so, I
only.
mean, that obviously keeps you hungry because like you're actually you have a lot on your plate and you can't kind of fuck around. You kind of got to keep your pedal to the metal, and that keeps me motivated. And I mean, just the first big score was kind of like at WPT when we were talking about in COVID when I got fifth for $250,000. That was more important to me than the $2 million score because I went from having like $5K to my name to having I had 100% of myself. I saturated in for $400. So
Amazing.
yeah, so then I had 240K, and I knew that like I'm like, all right, now everyone's fucked.
And they were.
And they were. Yeah. And I just knew that I was going to be comfortable and just be able to,
At that point, what was your life structure like? At that point, were you already married with a kid?
No. So that was the crazy part about the whole come up was my girl actually sent me a text message while I was in that tournament. She's like, "You need to call me." I was like, "Well, it's going to be a couple hours." She's like, "I'm pregnant," and so I called. This was during that tournament. After I
Baby
sat
run
it
good,
in,
bro.
Yeah.
I called, and we were actually supposed to have twins originally. So and then it was like too early on. One of them didn't make it or whatever, and so then I found I'm having one. But originally I thought I was having 2 kids, and now I got like 6K to my name, and I'm in this tournament, and I'm like,
I better.
all right, time to perform.
Yeah.
And so everything that I ever learned from that moment, I'm like, all right, we
Can't
gotta
take
put it,
ace
we
five
gotta
off
put it all
there.
together. No, I remember like I remember literally after that call, like 20 minutes later, I looked down, I got kings, and like the tightest guy opens under the gun, who hasn't opened in hours, and I'm like, I'm just calling here because like I'm pretty sure he's gonna have aces.
Yeah.
And he had aces, and like I lost barely anything on the hand,
Right.
and because I just remember that hand, but it was kind of like, all right, I need this score. It's not like I want it or I need it. So it was, I think that dad hormone or whatever kicked in and was like, let's go.
So I think you're touching on something that's like an important conversation to have, and one that I think Landon and I always try to have, and we end up getting kind of like washed away in the noise of it all. But a lot of what you're speaking to really paints the picture of what happens when you're a professional in a high variance environment where you'll never reach a proper sample, right? So for instance, if you run that king's hand by anybody who's theoretical, it's impossible. Like you're just torching the top of your range, right? You're just giving up a ton of money. But with the insight that you have in that one particular moment, and just even the slight weight that he may have towards aces as opposed to any other hand.
Yeah, it was very, and there's been a lot of, after that, like a lot of my deep runs have been from straight exploitive plays like that where like, yeah, in theory, if you type this in, that's why like it's kind of hard for a solver to have like an actual range of certain people because everybody's going to have a different range.
Well,
So-
the thing is, it also just wouldn't care. Like, even if we weighted this guy to having aces and we were able to program it into the solver, it still wouldn't care. It would still say you just have kings.
It's like he might have queens, jacks enough for the time.
Right.
Who gives a shit?
But what you're highlighting here, and I think this is a really important thing for people to understand, and I do really think it's what separates winners from not, is that there is no true volume. So you don't really get to play. You don't get to play the general game.
No.
You have to play the specific spot of that moment. So I'm curious how much influence. For both of you guys, how influenced are you by being actually programmed into the moment and, maybe sacrificing some long-term EV for the immediacy of feeling comfortable with the spot that you're taking?
Yeah. And I, like I was saying before, like a lot of these plays, I'm never making in a small field turbo because we get to play him a lot, but like the main event, it's once a year.
Right.
So like you're saying, in your lifetime, your sample size in the main event, you're gonna not do well. Probably, it's gonna be hard to keep it up. But like, if you're trying to go deep every single year, then you kind of got to try to diverse away from what you're supposed to do and just like miss a spot here and there because your skill edge is big enough where it's gonna matter to be in a tournament.
Right.
Then get tips right then.
Yeah. Would you say the same applies?
Yeah, pretty much exactly what you opened with is, I agree, like that statement. There's certain things, certain parts of the game, like maybe I'll overfold, certain parts I'll be over-aggressive in. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was this way for the majority of my career until I got to a point where I could consistently play the same cash game day in and day out. So maybe for the last 10 years or so, I've been able to put in enough volume with the same people where it's just like, well, I feel pretty confident that this is a scenario where maybe I'm running into it, but I don't care because I can't waste brain power trying to be perfect in these spots. It's not worth it. It doesn't improve my bottom line that much. But then I go play a tournament and I only play a dozen a year.
Yeah.
And I'm in a spot where I'm just like, well, this is a tight range spot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have value, but this fucking guy has me beat. And I get lazy and I default to just yeeting it off because at least the machine will tell me I was a good boy and pat me on the ass.
Yeah.
But I'm out of the event.
Yeah.
Almost always.
And I see it a lot. Yeah, I mean.
And I just wonder how valuable it is to keep your ass in the chair over earning every single maximum chip that you can in a particular spot, even though the goal of the game is to earn every chip in the game.
Yeah.
It seems like a real catch-22, but I do find that there seems to be a bigger divide here, more now so than ever. Maybe because there are two fractions that are playing this game, right? There's the high roller scene, which we kind of spoke to earlier. It's a fast-paced game. The structure's quick. The edges are small. Everybody's playing really well. You certainly can't be just flatting kings because you think that, Bill Klein has aces this time.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter. Like, you busted his aces, you busted his aces.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. but you go play, you travel halfway across the country to Florida. There's going to be 4 events that you want to play that are worth it. You maybe get to re-enter twice each. And you're playing against some fucking local yokel who is on a retirement tour and just out here trying to play snug and figure out a way to get into the money. That guy can't be approached with the same sort of strategy, right?
Yeah. And that's where I feel like a lot of people aren't diversifying away from, where they're too stuck into the computer where, I hope they keep doing it, but it's like I want to say a lot right now, but I don't want to say too much.
I understand. Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were discussing the notion between the theory player versus like the freestyler. And what I said, and I think this applies, is that everybody needs a crutch. It doesn't matter who you are or how good you are. At the end of the day, you're human, so you're making errors. And you need a North Star to default back to, and that is ultimately going to serve you as a crutch in all these situations where doing the hard thing feels uncomfortable. For the guy who's putting as much time, if not more, into studying sims than he is to actually playing the game, that default mechanism, that crutch that he's going to lean on is always what's the output. And if he has a hand that ranks his value, then, by default, he's allowed to go broke. And he gives himself that permission. And he doesn't really question it or think twice about it, right? He doesn't try to do better in those nodes because why bother? But if you told that same person, we're going to switch the parameters up on you, and half the field that you're playing against will never bluff. So they'll never have a bottom of range. The bottom of range will be the bottom of their value, which you would expect to be, no-brainers in these situations. Now would you approach it the exact same way? And of course not. They would come up with a different output. They would memorize something different. They would navigate these spots differently. But there's almost... It almost becomes, I don't want to use the word laziness because that's not fair, but it almost becomes an oversight, I think, where so much brain power goes into getting good at the game to begin with that layering over top of it the like fish strategy, if you will, feels like way too much. And I think a lot of great players who are incredible at this game don't recognize that they have this blind spot, right? Like we use the Lena hand, for example. And this is no slight to Griff, but it's like comparatively, Lena is a god when it comes to MTTs, and Griff is a rank amateur. His range is not going to look like what Lena has studied.
No.
So when you get yeeted into for pot and a half on the turn, I understand that, we can come up with some hands that we're beating with top pair.
Yeah.
But on the aggregate, we're not doing so well here, and the speed at which he made the call, the comfort in which he made it, where, he was okay with living with the results. Good on him. This is no criticism whatsoever. But I think that, and I said this like pretty confidently, if we were to put you guys in that chair, I think the call on the flop occurs and then the call on the turn never does. Right? It's just like you live to fight another pot.
No, it's always easy, obviously, when we're here, when you're in the chair playing in the moment, it's tougher.
Sure.
And Lena, and that, I think in his mind there, he was just thinking about past hands where that guy was kind of very aggro and was very fishy. So I think that just kind of overtook his mindset. Was that too much compared to what is he actually doing in this moment, like how comfortable he is, or, and like
it's
like
also the notion of the hands that you beat too, right? Like it's easy to pull out hands that we beat, but when you really distill them down to like where do they fall in the hand classes, they're all like high equity combo draws.
Oh yeah,
it's like, oh wait a minute, the hands that I beat are like 45% versus me. That's not great either.
Yeah,
and against like a guy like Griff, like you were saying, Lena's so good. That's where skill edge is so important. That like I don't need this spot. I'm gonna find 100 times better spot, or I'm gonna just have him ranged and just keep running him over all day because he's gonna overfold, or you know what I mean? It's like I'm not gonna take any close equity spot like where, that's kind of
he could have just carved his heads out elsewhere.
If I'm playing against Ike Haxton and Jason Kuhn 3-handed in a 50K, okay, maybe I need to take this spot.
Can't fold there.
No, there's not going to be many better spots. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's where, I don't think I'm going to.
I think it's funny because if you had truly asked him and you were able to get a real response, not a media response, but if you had asked him what he thinks the likelihood of him winning that 3-handed match is, in his heart of hearts, I'm sure he thinks it's like over 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe closer to 70, something like that. And in the moment, in calling off with the King Jack, it's easy to convince yourself like, oh, this is part of what allows me to win this high frequency.
Win this hand, win the tournament.
I think it's the opposite though. I think it's fold this hand, win the tournament at a really high frequency.
In that case, like I agree for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm using the hand to represent like these super narrow 0 EV nodes where your read on the other player is just worth everything. And when you're coming from that studied side, there isn't much credence given to the profile of the player they're up against, right? It's just that ones and zeros binary code type of approach where it's like, sure, you're willing to adjust and you're willing to exploit when it's obvious, but whenever it's really close, you just default to what you know.
You can't win 75% of the time. When you call here, you lose half the time.
Right.
Right?
And for a guy like Lena, he's been in so many big spots online that in his mind it can almost just like click back to like it's a GG 10K million final table.
Yeah.
Not that, oh shit, this is the main event.
Right.
10 million up top. Like,
yeah, we're playing for 6 million right now.
Yeah, so it's, I think in the moment, like I've made mistakes too in a moment where I was like, where I look back after and I'm like, wow, how did I ever go broke in that spot? Like,
yeah, I didn't bring this conversation up to throw shade at anybody.
No, I know. Obviously.
It was more to highlight that I do think that now more so than ever, we're getting to the point where the conversations are coming forward that people are really willing to own which camp they fall in. Yeah. For a long time, I feel like people who weren't quite as knowledgeable from the theory side or as deeply studied as like an Ike or Jason Kuhn or something like that, were almost like kind of shamed into their own little corners, right? Like you had the guys who stood tall, like the Aldis and the Darren Eliases, but even they were kind of doing it in their realm, right? Like they were playing the WPT open fields, and every now and again you'd see them dabble in a high roller, but it was more so just like, I'm going to shot take and see if I can run it up in this one particular event. And if not, I'm going to go back to what I'm really good at doing. And, you know, the guys that we recognize as being the most studied and everything else, they basically said the same. They were like, fuck your open fields. We don't want to sit here for 4 days. We're going to go play a 2-day turbo, and we're going to carve out 8% ROI there and just absolutely smash.
Yep.
And I think for a long time we all lived that way, and we were just like, good.
Yeah.
But now it's finally kind of converging where for the better part of a decade, the GPI Player of the Year was always going to be a high roller. And I think it's now 3 or 4 years in a row that's not the case. If you hold on to win it, I think Foxen was the last high roller to win it, and he had won it like 2 or 3 years in a row.
Yeah, Ali was up there too forever.
Yeah, of course.
I remember. Yeah.
Of course. And now Ben and you, and it seems to be transitioning more to where there's more of a convergence, right? There's a lot more overlap now between the 5K region and the high roller. I mean, you know, you got Lewis the Scarf out here tweeting, how dare the World Series run the 250K and the 5K 6 max simultaneously, you know? And I was equally as pissed when they ran the Colossus and a 3K on the same day. Like, how dare you, sir? But
take it easy on my Colossus, okay?
I guess that was kind of my long-winded way of saying, like, we're so fucking back.
Yeah.
We are so back. Street poker is so fucking bad. Jay Carver's coming out of the basement as we speak. You know, he like ducked his head out like fucking Sonny the goddamn groundhog, and Punxsutawney is like, is it winter? Are we done? We're back? I heard we're back.
I guess like here's a question sort of that I think I have for you guys is like when you're in spots or when you think about like overall strategy, because like obviously when it comes to taking spots, you're aware of like ranges and like what things potentially look like or your strategy looks like. Are you more concerned about like overall like protecting your strategy or just trying to win the hand you're playing in the moment of like, here's this spot right now. I need to do the best decision that makes sense to me. It doesn't matter if like my strategy might be a little bit imbalanced one way or the other. And is there more of like sense of protecting that versus a different type of player versus just?
So I think naturally with the street style that we kind of never fall into that problem where I'm like, okay, my strategy is this. I'm always just in the moment, in the hand. So like definitely the second where it's my decisions always just based on what's happened that day, year, whatever with that guy, maybe whatever, anything or girl and it's sorry. And yeah, so it's definitely for me, it's just I want to make the decision to keep me in the tournament right now with this hand. I don't care if my strategy, cause I don't really have a strategy. That's one thing I always said, like when I play, I show almost every hand, and it's just like an addiction for me. Like, whether I'm bluffing or I'm not bluffing, I just always show hands. And people are like, well, you know, aren't they going to pick up on something? I'm like, I don't have a set strategy. I wake up every day with like, you know,
you got ideas.
Yeah, I have ideas, and I've been in. It's more of pattern recognition that is my strategy. Is like I've seen how I've busted the tournament, and let's not do this. And you know, so it's like obviously we all have a set basis, and like I never had to look at charts, but I understand like, okay, my 12 big blind range is this. I have that, but you know, I'm not scared to not go with the 12 big blind range because I know this guy is completely nutted, or you know, or vice versa.
Yeah, there's definitely like a point to that where it's hard to know what someone's strategy is when they're not busy thinking about that stuff in that same regard. Just because, is it more important to like call it protect yourself in an infinite standpoint versus like this one hand right here, right now?
And that's what Berkey was saying, where in our lifetime, if we lived for thousands of years, then yeah, there would be a set strategy that you're supposed to do. But if you're only going to have this certain amount of time to play, you got to win as much as you can.
Even if we were able to extrapolate this out, like these open field events are so full of randoms and landmines that you're still better served to have a dynamic strategy, I think. Like even the best in the world, whether you're talking about guys like you that are just kind of like out there feeling your way through, or somebody who's a lot more maybe calculated and theory optimal, like a Brock Wilson type or a Landon or a Chris Brewer. There's still so much, and I keep doubling back to that notion of, but have you considered all the factors in this one specific spot, right? Because I myself feel like it almost feels lazy to just default back to what theory would do in a spot. Like that seems like the right starting point, not the end. You know, it's like, well, what would theory do in this spot? And it's like, oh, okay, it ranks his hand really highly. Okay, but now let me consider everything that's going on here. It's like, God damn it, man. I just know that this guy does not have worse value here. How on earth am I ranking this hand as highly as theory would? And at that point, like, you can start to second guess. And, you know, we kind of spoke about it yesterday or the day before in the pod where I feel like in tournaments specifically where all the money's up top and that's the end goal is finishing in the top 3, things like that. It's not that the notion of like passing on a spot to find a better one later has a lot of merit, right? Because then you'll just end up being the guy who doesn't ever want to flip. And, you know, shout out to my boy Cuz, I love him to death. But like, you don't want to be mucking ace king the 3 bets and shit like that consistently because you feel like you have a read on something. Like you have to be willing to gamble. Yeah. You got to be willing to put the chips in the middle. But I think there is something to being put in spots that you recognize at best are 0 EV and could potentially be losing a lot if you're right and they only have the one hand. And I think that live presents itself in that way. Like it's a byproduct of people not being good or studied. No offense to you guys or anybody else who's out there playing street poker, but you actually could not win if there wasn't a large collection of people who are also trying to do the same thing you are, but suck at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if everybody you were up against were, you know,
played like a computer,
really well studied,
we'd be fucked.
You'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Right? Because you would just be the outliers in an environment where it didn't pay to be an outlier.
It'd be like playing any game that's already solved completely.
Right.
If you're playing against a computer perfect.
Doing it for the vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're playing solitaire and there's a perfect strategy to win in solitaire and you're trying not to do it, it's never going to work. But that's the beauty of poker.
But you're actually playing in fields where not everybody, but the vast majority of the field is starting at the exact same point that you are, but they're not as thoughtful. They haven't really put as much time or energy into kind of crafting the way that they'll approach each stage of the event and hand by hand. And they don't really have much in the way of a checklist or protocols that they go through when they're thinking about a specific spot. So you just naturally beat them.
I do think that there's, in some cases, there's been a lot of people that play circuits and stuff for a long time, like many, many years, call it longer than them. But there's also just a difference in being able to like take the experiences that they have learned and also execute. Like there's a difference of like thinking that somebody's weak and then doing something about it versus like, I think they're weak, but I'm not too sure I'm going to pass. And like,
I wish I had that second thought more often.
Well, like it's probably more important in like different stages or spots in a tournament itself. And like something that I'd say that you guys do very, very well is like, you guys are good at like spot selecting where it's like, okay, I know that my hand probably shouldn't 4-bet, but I think this guy's 3-betting too wide. So it doesn't matter how good the opener is, like how good his hand is unless he actually has it.
You know, it's really interesting. Before game theory became the more popular way of approaching the way we think about things, we used to talk about, you know how most people would just be like, oh, I was so card dead. We would talk about being spot dead. And it had nothing to do with your cards. Because if it folded to you in the cutoff and you had a guy who folded the big blind too much, you just opened. You didn't look. And that was a spot.
The machine would kind of do the same thing given the right answer, like given the right key, right? You probably wouldn't raise 100,
right?
But like some
you
of the
would expand,
like the guys now that like call it the way that like I like to expand or try to like do different things is look and see like to what bounds would the machine take this spot? Where is the big line 3-betting enough? Okay, if they're not, how much do you get to open? Like in having some sort of framework for that, but like the live guy, the experienced guy that's played these spots so much and knows how limited the time is, or like okay, I'm just going to expand and think this is good enough. And like, this is going to win me enough money on the aggregate. And if it doesn't work, I risk 2 big blinds to win 2.5. How bad can it be?
It's also one of those things where I think the more studied you are, the more concerned you are with remaining within some framework of balance, where people who are willing to freestyle understand that if you have a one-off hand and your opponent doesn't know that you have a one-off hand, you effectively still just have the range that you normally would have. And you're just dealing with a particular combo that in theory wouldn't exist, but you can match with a hand that would be in there. You know, if say you open 8-7 suited, but not 8-6 suited in this spot, and you happen to open 8-5 suited, it doesn't change all that much. You know, you just match it. You candidate match with a hand that's close to it that you would open, like 5-4 or 8-6.
Yeah, and
sorry,
like
8-7.
the computer or whatever in this spot would take advantage of that, because not that they know that you're too wide, but you exploit yourself by being too wide.
Right.
But in like
only if they respond perfectly, though.
Which they don't.
They're not, which is what allows this to begin with.
Yeah, because I'm sure like when you're playing like some of like these smaller buy-ins, like 5Ks and lower, like you're probably playing like a vast percentage of the deck when like folded to you. Because like you just be like, okay, I'm gonna play single raise pots better than them. Like I'm gonna be able to like know where I'm at in spots better than them, and I'm gonna take some spots that I think are gonna work out for me this time more than not, and that's gonna be worth. Even though sometimes you can't be perfect. Like you don't go into a tournament thinking like every spot I take, I'm going to be right. They're always going to fold. Like they're always going to give me the result I want.
No, believe me, with the style that we play, we're going to look by like, I remember, and I was in more group chat hand histories than probably anybody in the world. Coming up in the last 3 years, because people would tell me like, "Oh, my friend sent me a hand, and you're in this group chat from it," and it would be like very, things that look very awful, but like they want to know my reasoning behind it. They want to know that I only was in this pot to beginning with because the big blind isn't playing a hand, and they get caught in the middle, and then I'm caught in a weird situation, but they're just looking at it like, he opened this from this spot. Like
that's terrible.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
But they don't know the reason I did that. And then there's other spots where I'm folding the cutoff with hands where like everyone else is opening, because I know this big blind's playing crazy, over defending, and it's just like a spot where I feel like I'm gonna lose chips in the long run. So it's like,
yeah, just trying to make decisions in the moment as to like, how does this impact my overall tournament life?
Yep.
And then using that to kind of say, okay, good spot, bad spot,
Yep.
break even spot, really good spot.
Yeah.
Like I guess for example, like when we played WPT final table 3-handed, when you had king queen off.
Yeah.
Like you're more concerned about attacking Josh's 3-bet than my open.
Exactly.
And I just happened to have it.
And you had it.
Yeah, like that's when it works out for, call it the guy with the balanced range that has a good hand.
Yeah, exactly.
But most times I'm just going to raise and then fold, and then Josh is going to fold, and then you pick up a big pot.
A lot of chips usually. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was exactly what happened in that hand, where my read, where there was really no read on you in the button there, because like you're just,
I'm just opening the button.
You're opening the button. Yeah. There was no info there. But then when Josh, I picked up something that he didn't want, like he wasn't sure if he wanted a 3-bet or not. And then when he did, I was like, okay, I'm going to attack this, and obviously I had a good hand to do it with.
And you were right in the sense that like he was like, yeah, I had ace jack off here. Where on the most part, like when I fold button, he's going to fold small blind, and you're just going to win the pot pre.
Yep.
And like nothing anybody can do about it after the fact, because we don't know how good your hand is.
Yeah.
Even though king queen off's a good one for it too.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, if
I had it.
Yeah, and if that was online and I had no information, king queen could be an easy muck there. You know what I mean? But
sure.
My information on Josh, who's very capable, very aggressive, and free-handed obviously, and I'm gonna know you opening the button like you're supposed to. So, yeah, that's another spot where a lot of things went behind that decision. I wish I didn't do it.
If you knew I had aces, you probably wouldn't have gone for it.
No. Sure.
Yeah.
While you guys are, or while Jesse specifically is kind of talking about hands he regrets, what, if anything, do you guys regret throughout the length of your career? I know yours is a little bit longer, Danny, but what's like one specific moment that you can point to where you're just like, God, I would do that all over again very differently?
Go ahead. You can go first, though.
I mean, I'm trying to think. It's going to sound like cliche, but like I made a bunch of mistakes in the past, and I've learned from all of them at like relatively young age. So nothing that I could think of, but sure there's.
I think that's fair. Like when you're young and you're able to gamble a little bit more because you have time.
Yeah, like I could dust off my whole roll at 22. Don't want to do that now.
Right. So what are you doing to not dust now? Like, do you feel a certain sense of pressure now that you have money?
A little
It's
bit.
smarter with age too.
Yeah.
But like the older you get, man. For me, my first like 4 or 5, I was smart. My first big score, I bought a house and everything. But then after that, like I had a bunch of big scores and just was very loose and just having fun kind of with my money.
Yeah.
And then I think now it's more like it's almost like another game. It's trying to collect all the money now. And it's like keep it. It's like
yeah. Is the plan moving forward for both of you guys to just like stay on this trajectory as long as possible, or are there like other avenues you want to explore?
I've always wanted to do some type of business outside of poker. I don't know exactly what it is, but that's my end goal is to diversify in other, obviously you want to invest and start a bunch of startups. So, that's the end goal for me is to find that right niche. I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
And start a business, play poker for not
because you have to.
Not
right.
because I have to.
You want to be the wreck. We all want to be the
I
wreck.
want to be the whale. I want to be the guy that comes there and they're like, all right, let's start the game. Berkey's here. Like,
It's good. It's good to be king, man. What about you, Danny?
What was the question again? Sorry.
Is your plan moving forward mostly to just like continue grinding, or are you looking to like move into other spaces?
For like the near future, like 10, 15 years, I could see myself, playing poker seriously. Definitely don't want to do that forever, but I don't have any set plan, 5, 10 years down the road, I'm going to do this and transition.
What will motivate you in the near term? Like, is it just money, or is it like you want to be number one in the world? You want to be playing high rollers? You want to?
Yeah. Probably just mainly the money aspect and just just really enjoy playing poker for the most part.
Yeah.
I think I was same with Danny too. We both grew up, he was a golfer. I played basketball, football. We've always been competitive, so I just like to win. And that's like with my kids, I'm always like, one thing I'm going to tell them when they get older, I don't care what you do, but be the best at it. Try to, just if you're going to do it, give it your all and try to, be the best.
Do you foresee, like, as your kids get older, it becoming more of a problem, like being away, traveling, kind of grinding?
I kind of travel. I take them on trips and stuff, which is nice. And I think the older I get and the older they get, I'll just try to take them more and more on trips. And I think there's more learning and seeing the world and just interacting with people than there is being in school. A lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably have them, obviously, in school, but no, I mean,
noble of you.
Well, I mean, I think almost like a traveling teacher and a homeschool type thing can even be better.
Yeah.
Like seeing the world and still, there's multiple ways to learn, but
yeah.
But they're
education-wise, you're probably not wrong. Socializing might be a little bit more tricky, but
exactly, yeah. And I played sports, so I want them to
of course
play sports and stuff, and.
Yeah,
but it's obviously once they get to 4 or 5 and they're playing sports, it's going to be way tougher to leave town for.
Are you going to be a little league dad?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like the dream goal is to coach them and
Are you going to be the coach, or are you going to be the guy with his hands through the chain link going, "Come on"?
I'll be the guy that comes, that just shows up and is like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
Hit the ball.
Nose to nose with the ump. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone's got to put the pressure on these guys. Yeah. Can't just be out here all willy nilly. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to stop. This was a really riveting episode for us. Like, it's been enjoyable to get to know you guys a little bit better. I'm sure the audience feels the same. There's not a lot out there about you guys, we just see a bunch of fucking hands, see a lot of money getting won, a lot of winners pictures being taken, but you're here now, you've arrived. You kind of got to be on the scene. So appreciate you taking the time with us.
Thanks for having us.
Kind of getting to know our audience a little bit.
Yeah.
And by all means, you're welcome back anytime, especially if you play some fuck hands.
Yeah.
Come on in. Get you on the In the Muck segment. You guys will have a great time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I would like to do the poker out loud. That I always like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that idea. I think that would be
You'd be
fun.
great at
Yeah.
Poker Out Loud.
Yes,
think
that would be
so.
awesome.
Next season for sure.
Get me on
You're
there.
100% in.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no one on earth right now I don't think would be worth more than you on Poker Out Loud.
It would be, it'd be funny for people to hear it.
You just got to get in the mind. We had Minkin on once, and she spoke nothing of strategy and just trolled people the entire time.
Yeah, there would be a lot of that.
It was actually
It
fantastic.
would be like, I'm gonna call this guy because he just looked at me really weird.
I don't
in
like
this
his
way.
face.
It's really not that far off from everyday thoughts, so I think that's pretty reasonable. All right, that's going to do it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed this week. We're going to be back to normal time. I think we're just going to go noon every day next week. Get back to the normal grind
I think
as
we'll
we
get
are.
Scotty Boombots in the mix.
Okay,
I think
that's,
Scotty
that's good to hear. We're trying to lock down Seaver.
I said 10 a.m. was too early, so I said we're at
Perfect.
noon now.
Noon it is.
Noon for you, my guy.
Any time for Seaver. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Noon
You say,
plus.
what time do you want to do, Scott?
That's
He said
right.
noon.
Right.
He said noon.
Then we'll do it noon.
Noon it is. And then we'll have Rast on the back burner just in case. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and give these guys a follow over on Twitter. We'll see you guys all Monday, noon Pacific.
Later,
Peace.
squad.
Peace.
Peace.